Welcome back to another episode of the Saturday Sports Shift, the official podcast of the NASCAR iRacing FedEx League here post Sonoma. And of course, a lot of grape juice in Victory Lane has been drank this week, and a lot of right and left hand turns were taken throughout the three races with iCar, the Grand National Series, the Cup Series, on track here in Sonoma this week. So it was a very fun week all around from the road course here in Sonoma, California. So, of course, I am your podcast host, Ethan Trendler. We got Brody Webster finally back. So, Brody, you want to real quick explain why you've been absent for so long?
Okay, so the first week I was absent, CWR was taking a field trip to get some track testing time. I'm not sure for what track it was. Honestly, don't remember. And then the next week, we were very sick. Cameron Chandler gave us an illness. And and Cole Wilson, it's his fault too. But so we're finally back on the Saturday sports shift after a great week at Sonoma. Pretty good races, I would say so myself.
Yeah, of course. We're going to real quick start off with the iCar Pro Series race. So that was on Tuesday night, as always, for iCar. There's nothing on Monday this week. So Tuesday in iCar, of course, that was the 30-lap Sonoma race they had. I believe it was race number 6 of their season. Of course, Cameron Chandler entered that one coming off, I think, another win, his third of the year. He's looking for 3 straight championships this season in iCar, which he's never lost the championship before, and he's on track to maybe win another one this season. So but Matthew White was the car to beat early on, so he started on pole, absolutely pulled away from everyone, dominating the race. And then, late in the race, he had a connection issue with his screen. I think it froze or something, and he ended up hitting the wall, gave him suspension damage, and then he hit the wall again, and ultimately DNF, which was just an absolutely huge shock to, of course, me in the booth, which I was the only one on Tuesday, which is usual. So of course he crashed, and then Bryce Benton came on through from second, and then instantly took the lead and never really looked back. There was no cautions in that race either. It was a pretty straightforward race outside of that big incident. So it was just Brody, of course, insane to see your leader Matthew White so good at Sonoma, just that happen to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone predicted him sweeping the week, to be completely honest. And once everyone saw him with that connection issue and saw him crash into the wall, it was like just one of the most surprising things you'll see nowadays in the iCar series because normally you can't really predict who's gonna win a race like this, but Matthew White, where he's so good at Sonoma. He just always is going to be super fast and pretty much normally has no competition on his speed there. But the second we saw him go into the wall, it was like instantly you're like, okay, maybe there's a chance he doesn't sweep the week now because of, a connection issue, which kind of sucks. But huge win for Bryce Benton in the iCar series. I think that's pretty good for his points perspective. I'm not really too sure on it, but obviously winning is pretty good, I would say. And him running second right before it shows that he did have the speed. It wasn't just kind of luck that he ended up there, but yeah,
Yeah, it was, of course, Bryce Benton's second win of the iCar Pro Series season. He had his first win
that's
earlier in the year
right.
at Kansas. And I think that battle with Cameron Chandler. The race wasn't broadcasted. It was supposed to be, but we had some technical issues, unfortunately, then. But luckily, those all obviously got sorted out before this week. So let's move on to Wednesday, which, of course, was the Grand National Series. Brody Webster, of course, you were in that race as always for the Grand National Series. So first of all, it was kind of the same kind of guys. They mostly, I feel like all the Cup guys kind of ran every race this week with all the really good ones on road courses. It was mostly a lot of them up front in every single race this week. Same kind of story here. Matthew White started second, though, and Ashton Miller was really impressive on pole, but unfortunately for him, immediately lost it on lap number 1. Which is not really good for him. And then Matthew White ultimately ended up pulling away. There was no halfway break in the race. And Brody Webster, real quick before we talk about the rest of this race, like what was it like your first road course of the season?
Um, so we were pretty confident going into Sonoma, and we kind of showed that finishing in the top 10. Honestly, surprised myself. I thought, I was confident that I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't like I was not confident enough in like a top 10, but we put in the work and we got some track time at the CWR shop and so we were pretty locked in and obviously got ended up with a P7, so pretty good for my standard at a road course. But what we should really talk about is uh two things: Bryce Benton's race and Ashton Miller's race. So you said Ashton Miller started on the pole, which which is true, and then dropped back and absolutely got taken out by Bryce Benton, got spun out, and pretty much had to drive his way all the way through the pack again to finish wherever he did. So I just want to say that was a really good drive from him. Honestly, like I knew he was pretty good at road courses, but I did not know he was that good. But driving through the field, that's obviously took some skill, and he showed good speed at Sonoma. Also, Bryce Benton, uh, blowing the engine. How did you feel about that, Ethan Trendler?
I mean, it was pretty insane. We usually don't see like huge mechanical issues like that. Of course, he was in it with Jacob Malone a little bit. He ended up spinning out Malone early in the race. Malone had issues. He had the pit, and then he was kind of getting in Benton's way. They were making contact all around. Then Benson got some nose damage, and ultimately, with 3 to go, the engine expired up the hill. I think it was either 3 or 2 to go. And that was all behind your leader, dominant car of the day, Matthew White. This time he led every lap and actually ended up winning the race. It was only his third ever Grand National Series win. His second one was in Nashville back in season 3. His first one was season 2, the Daytona season opener, and that insane finish. Like, Brody, how surprising is that to hear that Matthew White's only got 3 Grand National wins? I know he's obviously not full time in Grand National, never has been, because he's a full time Cup Series regular, but still runs a decent amount of races.
Wait, I really did not know that. I thought he'd have more. Um, yeah, that's crazy, honestly. Um, maybe yeah, I feel like most of the Grand National races he normally ends up getting bad luck or like connection issues, I feel. So it's obviously good for him to win one since what, season 3?
Yeah. I think he has more Truck Series wins than Grand National wins, which is pretty insane to be honest.
That is crazy. Really did not know that.
Yeah, so of course Matthew White led every single lap. There were no cautions that race because there's no halfway break in the Grand National Series anymore. There are no incident cautions either. It was a pretty relatively clean race, but outside of the Bryce Benson and Jacob Malone things that were going on there. So Brody, what was your thoughts though? Just seeing them, I know you're on the racetrack, so you really couldn't see it, but like even post race, maybe watching it back a little bit, seeing them go at it, and then ultimately Ashton Miller actually ended up driving up from 11th where he spun out, and then to 7th place or at the second place, I should say.
Yeah, I was about to say I thought he was up further. So yeah, I mean, I saw them on track. Like I was behind Bryce for a little bit, and I just would see Malone. Like I think we got a little bit of internal detail. He said he was kind of just like slowing Bryce up on purpose, and like that's what his goal was. His goal wasn't to wreck him. He was just trying to slow him up and make him lose positions. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, he blew the engine either way, so he kind of was cooked either way. But yeah, it was crazy for sure, especially because I saw when he ended up getting that damage when he got like whatever happened to him the first time, and he was like drifting through corners. Me and Jacob Abner, we were having a pretty good battle, and then we see Jacob Malone kind of falling back and like Tokyo drifting it through corners, and obviously went like backwards through the pit lane. That was pretty crazy too. But yeah, I just want to say like that was crazy, especially watching it back and like seeing like what was really going on. Like, it was kind of crazy to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so of course, at the end of the day, Matthew White got an easy win there. So definitely got redemption from iCar the night before. That also ultimately, of course, ended up in the Cup Series race on Thursday. So it was a relatively long Cup race here at Sonoma. It was actually 20 laps longer than the Grand National race, which is pretty unusual at a road course like this. It was 55 laps on Thursday. So of course, Matthew White ended up winning the pole there and absolutely dominated the first half. The first half was relatively pretty clean up front. Like I would say the top 20 cars, or there's really wasn't a ton of. Well, there was some passing going on, but there really wasn't a ton of action or anything like that. No incidents or anything up inside the top 20. Outside the top 20, it was pretty insane. There was a bunch of wrecks that weren't needed to be cautions. They were out of the way. Bunch of DNFs, a couple of cars having mechanical issues early in the race. I mean, it's the first ever race here at a road course with the Gen 4 car. There were a lot of mechanical issues, a lot of drivers making mistakes, so it was kind of to be expected. But to the magnitude as we saw early in the race there, I'm not really sure if I expected all of that.
Yeah, I did see a lot of mechanical issues. I didn't really watch the race live, but I got a lot of detail like from different drivers, of asking them how the race went, and so yeah.
So Matthew White easily ended up winning the stage. Got a little bit chaotic there at the end of some stage positions, but he won the stage. And then let's bring in Showtime Aiden Donahue here, who ended up actually flipping the stage, pitting earlier, getting no stage points, I don't believe, but actually ended up taking the lead after that. So Aiden, you want to explain how that all went for you guys at the second half restart?
There ain't much to explain. I got 5 turns to run through for you. Went through turn one, great. Went through turn two, great. Then went up a hill and my rear tires were off the ground. Spun like a top and still ended up coming back to finish fifth. So Atlanta should be fun.
And of course, that included Matthew White, the dominant car that he got a lot of nose damage in. How about this? Bryce Benson, the driver that DNF'd the night before in Grand National and then won iCar the night prior to that. He ended up getting through all that and ultimately ended up taking the lead. He was running like fourth to fifth all day long before that, but the second half restart took the lead, and then there was chaos behind him. Saw a massive pileup. I think involved you, Aiden, involved Cameron Chandler, Sean Rowe, Ashton Miller, so many top contenders, Richard Cherry. I mean, it was an insane pileup that we saw there. Caution, that was the first ever caution this week for cause. Big crash. A lot of damage was taken.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really in it. I just rolled up on it. That the last part of it, I was just kind of going after Matt as soon as the yellow came out. That's why I was like right up against him. But I didn't really see anything, and then I just saw 3 cars stopped when I got up the hill, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll go this way.
Yeah, and then of course it was a pretty. We probably restarted with about 15 to go after the pit stops. Bryce Benson had the lead, but Matthew White was there. But he did have a lot of damage from those 2 big hits that he took. The speed was definitely knocked out of his race car. So of course he got up to second place. I thought Matthew White was going to close into Bryce Benson. I really did think that was going to happen, but unfortunately for him, fell back. Actually ended up getting passed by Braden Hunsaker, his teammate, with about 2 to go. And Bryce Benson, somehow, some way, not the fastest car in the race, but took advantage of a lot of stuff. He comes home after a suspension in Fontana to take his second win of the season after winning the Daytona 500 earlier on. So it's been a really weird season for Bryce Benson. Ended up winning the Daytona 500, a huge win for him, his first ever Cup Series victory, finally after 3 seasons of trying. The next week in Richmond had an awful race, ended up getting suspended after that one. He ended up on his lid at one point, or nearly on his lid, after a massive final lap crash. Obviously suspended in Fontana, but then comes home to take redemption win in Sonoma. So, like, Brody, what is it like to be a driver, you think, to have that kind of season going for you?
Uh, I think Bryce is definitely happy with his performance this season, but at the same time with that you know, the little one race suspension, at the same time he's still like in the fight where if he would have been able to put down some points in that race in Fontana, I think he'd be a lot happier with these wins, but I mean obviously he's still going to be very happy. But I think he'd be even happier if he could have put down some points in Fontana and still like been comfortable where he's at in the chase.
I'm pretty sure Bryce Benson would have pretty much easily had the points lead if he didn't unfortunately get suspended for Fontana and didn't have that bad luck in Richmond. So but he's still, what, third in points. He's got a decent buffer to the chase, maybe about 25 or so points, so that's not bad at all. I mean, it's definitely less than it would have been last season, so of course, then only the top 10 make the chase this year. But of course, he sits third in points. Sean Rowe was able to hold on to second place. And Cameron Chandler, he had I don't want to say a bad race, but kind of a rough one going at the end. He finished 11th place. He only had maybe like 8th to 10th place speed all day long. Still, though, barely holds the points lead by about 2 points over Sean Rowe. but he's got to watch out. People are coming behind him like Bryce Benton, Sean Rowe, Aiden Donahue, Braden Hunsicker. Matthew White had a great race. Ultimately, even though he finished third, not what he wanted there at the end, after dominating the first half, he still moved up to seventh in points after being out of the chase before this race even started, but nearly got max points, got a playoff point, or I should say chase point for this season. And had a good luck there. So right now, Bryce Benton does have the most amount of chase points with 10 with those 2 wins. So that is a huge buffer. That's of course going to give you plus 10 if you're the regular season champion. It gives you another 15 points. So exactly what Bryce Benton needs for the chase points. So, anyways, that of course was all about Sonoma. Really, really crazy week. We It was definitely a very enjoyable one. I very much enjoyed the Cup race. Grand National was pretty decent. iCar was okay as well, but most action I think happened in the Cup Series like usual. And they move on to Atlanta next week. But before we get into that, we got some breaking news with our Brody Webster.
Yeah, we have some team drama with formerly known as Questionable Motorsports, now known as No Name Motorsports, with a little ownership gone wrong. Andrew Stacy, uh, from my inside sources, this is what I have. Andrew Stacy was pretty much kicked out of the ownership, and but he had originally founded the team, so that is why they had to switch their name. Uh, but I wish we had further details, but that we would have to talk more with like people like CJ Erdman, Payson Lindsay, and Aiden Hulse, the other owners of now known as No Name Racing, to really get the details on what's going on there. But I know Andrew is starting a new Questionable Motorsports and probably going to actually make some moves this off season to pick up some drivers where it's pretty much a new team. But yeah, pretty much just some breaking news that has happened over the week.
Yeah, it's been pretty insane there. They have more like team changes and ownership changes than they have wins, which is zero, which is pretty embarrassing. I'd have to say so myself. I mean, yeah, not the greatest look for them, but of course that was all about Sonoma. Those 3 races that we had. Matthew White definitely was expected to maybe sweep all of them. Definitely had a chance. Obviously in the iCar race, really out of his control there, but in the Cup Series, just too much damage to really fight for the win there at the end of the race. Unfortunately for him. But of course, we'll move on to next week, which is a very anticipated racetrack. It's going to be probably one of the drivers' favorite races of the season for both Cup and Grand National. It is Legacy Atlanta Motor Speedway. Of course, that'll be the first time Legacy Atlanta Motor Speedway will be used. We used to do Super Speedway Atlanta, which is the new Atlanta, for the past 4 seasons. But with the Gen 4 car now coming in and the league kind of getting more into a classic look with the chase and all that, full season points for the Grand National Series, which is obviously its new name. We go to Old Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is Legacy Atlanta this season, so we're definitely very excited for that one. I know you drivers are really excited for it. How do you think it's going to play out with the old worn out surface?
I think it's going to be probably worse than Darlington with the tires. I haven't really done any testing there yet, so I don't have um, any like say or like stats to go off of. But I have done a lot of races there, like when iRacing officials come in with I've done Next Gen, Xfinity, or I guess Grand National for you guys. I've done a little bit of Gen 4 there. A lot of grooves. There's a lot of grooves to hold speed, but you're gonna have to run the bottom to make your tires last.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is tires will be probably the biggest factor in that race. Just whoever's gonna be able to save is probably gonna whoever can save and be fast while doing it is probably going to be the dominant one there.
Yeah, especially that race we did at Legacy, Texas. With when I was in second chasing down Bryce, it just got so stagnant. I feel like we were like really really even. Um, Even though it is a Gen 4 car and thankfully it's not the next gen car, Dirty Air still exists. It's still a physical thing. Um, so maybe late in the run you'll see guys trying like go up to the fence if they're like behind. Maybe someone trying to go from 10th to the top 5 or someone going for the win. You might see someone just try and get right up against the boards in turn 1 and 2 and use kind of like a wide arc into turn 3 to get exit speed off of 2 and 4.
Yeah, it should be very, very fun, though. We expect a lot of really good racing there. We had it for preseason Thunder for the Cup Series. It was definitely very good. Obviously, a Grand National there as well. iCar goes to Lanier, I believe, which is, I think, a short track. We've never raced there in iCar before on Tuesday. There's nothing on Monday, but we may have lobbies on Friday night. So that would mean a 4-day action week. So a lot of action coming up next week for the NASCAR iRacing FedEx League. So we're definitely very excited for that one, for all those races, for the Grand National Series, the iCar Pro Series, the Cup Series, and probably lobbies on Friday night. So, of course, that will do it in Sonoma. Real quick, you guys have any final thoughts over this Sonoma week that you guys want to share with our viewers?
It was peak.
That was okay, I guess. It was pretty fun.
All right. Well, of course, that was all about Sonoma, and then we talked a little bit about what's coming up here at Legacy Atlanta Motor Speedway. Of course, you can watch that all live on the channel every single night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and probably Friday as well for the long night of lobbies, which NASCAR Racing FedEx lobbies finally return after a little bit away. So that will just about do it for tonight. Thank you, of course, to our special guest, Aiden Donahue, joining us tonight. And then finally, our co-host, Brady Webster, coming back after a few weeks away from whatever he was doing. But yeah, that'll just about do it on this episode of the Saturday Sports Shift. Enjoy all the on-track action coming up this week at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Lanier, and then, of course, the stuff that's going to be going on for our lobbies on Friday. And we'll see you next Saturday for another episode of the Saturday Sports Shift. So, of course, enjoy the on-track action this week, and we'll see you next week for what would be episode 9 of the Saturday Sports Shift.